Hello and welcome to a Life Burst Extra. Today we're going to go over the Card Jockey deck profile, deck composition, deck tech, whatever you want to call it. Basically, this is going to be the place that you're going to want to go to if you want to build a Card Jockey deck. You want to know what all of your options are, how it fares in the future of the format, where it currently fares in this format right now, and what are some alternatives that you can place in replacement to certain cards, and what are the core of the deck. Whew, that was a lot to say in one breath. But here I am with a big cup of water, so let's go and start talking about Card Jockey. Now, Card Jockey is something you're going to need to understand is, in essence, a aggressive mid-range deck right now. It kind of actually has a combo finish. So if this were Magic the Gathering, I would usually probably call this deck a combo aggro hybrid. You might be wondering, why is it combo? And that's got everything to do with its piece. The whole reason why you want to play this deck, unlike some of the other decks where you want to play it for the center, you want to play it for the assists, this one, straight up, the only reason you're playing this deck is to activate its piece. And the piece that you're going to be activating is Endless Punchline. Now, Endless Punchline basically reads, and I'm going to not... Well, yeah, actually, I'll read it exact, so that way you understand what the exact wording is on here, because it's a little confusing sometimes. It reads that you have to have a Card Jockey on your level 1 or more on your team, and you need to have a level 3 Card Jockey, and we're going to activate this level 3 center. Its constant ability that your level 3 is going to gain is this Elrig can attack even when it's downed, and it can attack up to 3 times in one turn. Now, it also has an action. When this Elrig attacks, shuffle your deck, reveal the top card of your library. If that card is a level 1, the amount of times that it can attack this turn is reduced by 2. If that card is a level 2, the amount of times it can attack this turn is reduced by 3. That's a very, very complicated way to basically say that, and this is by omission, so currently the only types of card types that you can have in your main deck are a Signy and a spell. So if you have reveal a level 3 Signy or a spell or anything else, if it ever gets printed in the future, then you get to attack 3 times in one turn. It does not matter if your Elrig is downed. That happens. I've been attacked 3 times by a frozen downed Elrig before. So you're playing it for this piece. In essence, you are basically trying to do this combo effect to really do an aggro effect. So it's sort of like a combo engine that allows for an aggro finish. The aggressive finish is that, you're attacking 3 times in one turn. It also is helped by the center. Currently, the only center out right now is MC Lion Third Verse. It has the ability that when it enters, and of course it has the grow cost of 2, when it enters, you look at the top 4 cards of your library. You can add up to 2 cards, any cards you want, by the way, to your hand, and then you put the rest in your trash. That's pretty rare for white, that it puts your own cards in your trash. And then you get the action. Once a game ability, this Elrig gains the ability to down a level 2 when it attacks. At the end of that attack, if the opponent did not take any damage at the attack, you can down an upped level 2 Elrig on your field. That means your assists, by the way. And that, if you do, you can up this Elrig, aka you've got the ability to attack with it again. Basically ensuring that if Endless Punchline didn't finish the opponent, next turn you finish them out by attacking. Oh, they guarded, that's fine, attack again. Oh, they guarded, that's fine, attack again. Very unlikely that they have 3 guards in a row. Now, I want to point out that this is a combo aggro deck. And the reason why is because the combo here is you're playing lots of cards that filter your deck and put level 1s out of the deck and leave level 3s and spells in the deck. This is also going to be one of the strange ones where you're really purposefully twisting and pushing the deck composition. Normally you want to do 16 level 1s, 8 level 2s, 12 level 3s, and you want 4 spells, or those 4 card slots to go somewhere else in your level 1s or level 2s. This deck pushes the limit. You really want something closer to, I've seen people go down even words to 14 level 1s, 4 level 2s, The rest are all level 3s in spells. It is not crazy to say that this deck would have 8 to 10 spells in the deck. As such, because it has such a high density of spells, you're also usually pressed to get Enter. This deck, it's one of its weaknesses, is that if it's Enter starved, it will very much limp across the finish line. You're also going to be playing a lot of Signies that specifically have on Enter effects. Pay some amount of Enter, look at the top X cards of your library, your deck, and then put some cards into your hand and the rest back. Because inevitably, when you shuffle your Endless Punchline, you want it to have a higher density of spells and level 3s in there. So the concept of this deck, before we get into even the nitty-gritties about what's in your Elrig deck, what's in your main deck, the concept of this deck should be somewhat aggressive leaned, but also the ability to put up walls that will draw you cards, specifically level 1s. It will draw you cards, and innately you're going to be putting up these walls because your damage output is not necessarily going to be from your Signy. It is going to be from your Signy in early game. I should be clear about that. But your late game, you're not putting holes in lanes. You're going to win by turning MC Lion sideways and endless punchlining them to death. So, keeping that in mind, how do we build this deck? We're not as focused on lane clearing like we are in No Limit. I highly suggest that if you guys don't understand how aggro works in this format, you should listen to the No Limit deck breakdown. In the future, we will talk about sort of how aggro functions in this game in general. Because you're kind of on a precarious line between being aggressive but also being a mid-range wall deck. In the future, I should be clear about this, and we'll talk more about it later in this episode, but in the future, you're going to become more of a mid-range wall deck than an aggressive deck. But currently, there's not enough cards to support that. So you're going to be trying to open some lanes at the beginning, get some pot shots in, make them lose a little bit of life cloth, and then you're going to finish the game up with your Endless Punchline. If you don't finish the game up with your Endless Punchline, you're going to finish the game up with your MC Lion being able to basically always get that last chunk of damage in. To support this, it is worth mentioning that for Endless Punchline, you don't need to have fully grown assists. So unlike Uchu no Hajimari, you don't need to rush to get your level 2 assists out. You just need your level 1 assists. So your level 1 assists are going to be something easy to do. And the easiest to do level 1 assists in this are going to be VJ Wolf Laser. VJ Wolf Laser is a really fancy way of basically saying Enter Charge 2. You look at the top 5 cards of your deck, you put up to 2 cards that share a color with your center Elrig into the Ender Zone, and then you put the rest on the bottom any turn. This also goes with the deck thinning. Your goal here is to find a bunch of white cards, and then instead of enter charging the level 3s, you enter charge the level 1s to get them out of your deck. You should also be basically doing that when you're mulliganing on your first turn. You should be thinking, let me go ahead and mulligan any level 2 or spell or level 3 that's in my hand, put them back in the deck, and I'm going to get the level 1s out of my deck, and I'm just going to open this game with a handful of level 1s. Your other assist that you're going to be doing is DJ Lovett, and I honestly think DJ Lovett Scratch is probably the best way to go. It's a 0 cost. It vanishes target Signy with 1,000 or less, which is all that there really is in the early game. Gets you an open lane to get in a little bit of damage, so I think that's the way to go. Your level 2 assists, though, you have a little bit of leeway to choose what you want on the meta. Now, for DJ Lovett, I'm partial to Crossfade, personally. It opens up a lane, and it just says vanish target Signy on your opponent's field. Costs only 2 to do it. We want lower cost assists if we can help it, because a lot of our Signy filter and use our Enter. So we're going to need to focus our Enter more towards that end of the world. It also has a kind of expensive ability to crush one of your opponent's life cloth. Now, that can be good because some games will go longer, especially if you're up against Diagram or Uchu no Hajimari. And if the games go longer, having that direct crush of a life cloth could be the difference between winning the game and losing the game. And then I'm also partial to VJ Wolf Sync. Now, VJ Wolf Sync allows you to more or less basically get a life cloth. But if you read it carefully, you'll realize what it does is you can shuffle. You look at the top life cloth, you look at what it is, and you can choose to put that card back, put 2 life cloths from the top of your deck in there, or you can just add a life cloth from the top of your deck and put it into the into your life cloth. So why is that good? It gives you more control of your deck selection. Let's say for some reason you've held off on turn 3 pulling off your Endless Punchline. You just need a little bit more filtering. You can wait around and do VJ Wolf Sync. It's also really, really demoralizing against what I think the best deck in the meta is right now, which is No Limit, by just sort of pulling yourself the ability to just recover one of your life cloths, maybe even get an extra life burst in that effect. It could turn the game for you. But if we want to look at other options for your assists, and I think they're valid other options, I do think that I don't like VJ Wolf Stream. I should just be clear about that. 13 or more is an incredible ask for an opponent to have, and I don't think that's ever really going to be working well for you. But I think Mirage is actually a pretty good choice. Now, Mirage costs 0 and lets you get all of your Signy on your field plus 5,000 power. Now, you can do that during the main phase, and you can do it during the attack phase, which means that against diagram decks or no limit decks that are trying to burn you out, and that burn is going to be, burn or removal you out, that number is going to be based on the power of your Signy, then VJ Mirage can really turn around one of those games. Now, it has very expensive other stuff, which is vanish your opponent's Signy on the field, and then vanish, and then when a Signy attacks, you can negate an attack. It's unrealistic that you are going to get those last 2 effects off, but the fact is, it's a modular. You should be looking at these types of things as modular. If it has multiple options, you don't need to look at it as in this thing costs 7 Ener to do the effect. It actually costs 0 to do the effect, and you can tack on 3 or tack on 4 for the next effect. So I actually genuinely like VJ Mirage. Now, DJ Lovett level 1 Double Scratch is kind of an okay option. I don't love it. I don't love the discard effect on it, but the ability to give your Signy Double Crush can be pretty sweet sometimes. I think it's too risky. I think I'd rather not have that, and I just have the straight up vanish. Let's see here. I'm just going through my own thing, just trying to find the right one. Here it is. DJ Lovett Mix. I also think this is a valid option. If you're finding yourself needing to punch a small hole, again, this thing only vanishes a level 800 at the cost of, 8,000 at the cost of 3 Ener. I think this one's pretty good, but being able to give Assassin and Lancer on command can really turn games around. So if you just want a little bit more of an aggressive edge, you're just finding yourself being 1 or 2 damage shy, then I think DJ Lovett Mix is a pretty good option. You give up a little bit on defense to do it, but a pretty good option to do as the assists. I have to admit that this is one of those teams where I'm looking at it and I think the assists are rock solid on all ends. You've got a bunch of different options that you can go with, so you can tweak it as you need it. Now, we talked about the piece already. The whole reason you're playing this deck is for this piece, right? You're not really playing this deck for MC Lion's Enter ability, which is a team ability to look at the top 4 cards of your library, add 2 into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. You're really only doing it for the team. So we've got one piece down no matter what. But what's your second piece? Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself from No Limits, but I would use Kiri Kirum in this deck specifically, because it just needs a little help with the Ener. It is not the most Ener efficient deck. You are spending a lot on spells. You are spending a lot on your Signies. So you want a little bit of Ener, and especially if a smart player is Ener starving you, you really might find yourself being hammered in the beginning of the game. So I think that is a pretty good choice. Now, if you don't want to do that, just as equally a valid choice here is to go to the top. Just like in No Limit, you're kind of searching for a very specific card, but unlike No Limit, you're searching for your projection map. as one of your Signies. Basically, make it almost impossible for your opponent to guard, allowing you to get your Endless Punch line off or get the last bits of attack in just to finish off this game, especially if it goes super, super long. So I think it's a little strange. If you want to use Go to the Top, you're going to recognize that you will not use your second piece probably 60% of the games you play. But the slower paced decks, it might be worth it there to just get yourself to the end. So that is your Elrig deck in a nutshell. We also know exactly how we want to be playing this deck right now. Let's go ahead and start talking about the main deck itself. You're going to start off with your 4 Signy, as usual, 4 Guard as usual, your 4 Servant Sharp. You're going to follow it up with Hamiel. On this sample deck list, you can see I have 3 here, but I would not begrudge anyone for playing 4 here. I think that's part of the core of the deck. Another core element of this deck is going to be your Good Digs, the spells, your Burning Infernos, the spells, and your Archwains and your Projection Maps. Now you're going to notice I skipped a pretty significant Signy there. I skipped Lancelot. I don't think Lancelot is the best card ever for this deck, but it is a generically good card, then that's why we include it. But if we're talking about what the deck wants to do and what kind of focus the deck needs, you'll see this recurring theme. What does Haniel, what does the Projection Map Angel, I'm gonna get the actual name for you guys too, just so I'm not just saying Projection Map here, PRJ Map Code Heart. For anyone who doesn't know the joke on this card, projection mapping is something that you do in a concert in order to make the stage look like it has dynamic effects, like cool graphics going off everywhere. You projection map it. So that's what this card is. You can tell that I had a little bit of background in AAV. So you want to be using this angel, and you'll notice all of them basically say, spend an enter, look at the X cards of your library, put one of them in your hand, put the rest in your library. So that way you're doing that deck thinning. That's the goal of the deck. That's going to be what you're focusing on. Later down the line, we will be focusing more on that and less on aggression. But right now, you don't have enough cards to just make a whole deck out of it. So you're going ahead and you're going to do that part. Now, looking at all the other cards that are, again, replaceable in the future, but pretty good. You've got Xiaozun. Xiaozun allows you to basically have a defensive Signy. It's very small, but it is a wall, and it is annoying to go against. So, again, when you're walling the opponent, having Shadow on the opponent's turn is pretty good. Bear in mind that Shadow is going to be Signy level 2 or less, so it's going to be basically defending against Lancelot. That's its job. We're looking at the other level 1s. You're also going to have Percival. Percival is just to get some red into the deck. As the deck goes forward in its future, you're probably going to want green more than red. But for right now, this is what that does. And that's all your level 1s. Like I said, it's a smaller amount. Your level 2s, you only got one of them. Lancelot. Lancelot does a great job lane clearing. You're always going to want to pack 4 of them. It costs colorless to do the lane clearing. It's a perfect card for this deck. It's a perfect card for most decks, though. And then after that, let's talk about our level 3s. We've got the Projection Map here. We've got Archwains. And we've got Black Saddles. Now, I did say that Projection Map, Code Heart, and Archwains are core to the deck. I did not say that Black Saddle is core to the deck, because Black Saddle is not core to the deck. Black Saddle is definitely a placeholder. There will be a better card coming in set 2. I can't remember the name right off the top of my head, but what it does, it's a brave. What it does is allows you to bring a guard from your graveyard back to your hand for a low cost. It has Harmony, red Elrig, which we have on here. That's DJ Lovett. So that card will replace that in the future. But in the meantime, we just need a little bit of Intercharge, so that's where Black Saddle comes into play. The rest of the deck is spells. Burning Inferno, yes, it's off team, but it still does a lane clearing. 8,000 or less is still a wide majority of Signy that you're going to be able to clear out at a very small rate, just 1 enter. Good Dig is literally air in the deck. It does nothing else, other than occasionally lane fills against an aggro deck for its Life Burst effect, but it's there for being air. You're going to be basically using it to just make it so there's more chance that you'll hit your Endless Punchline and less chance that your hand is going to be crap so that you can spend some enter and get some stuff back. You'll see I have one stand-up in here. That one stand-up could be Hamiel if you want. I just wanted to really skew the deck to being more 3-drop and spells than 1-drops. But no one would begrudge you if you swap that out to a 1 Hamiel. Let's talk about things that you can replace certain cards with. If you want a more aggressive lean, you could theoretically replace your Percivals with Rommel Lightly Armed. That's going to make you feel more aggro. It's going to be a little bit more like No Limit in that case. But if you're looking at a No Limit meta where you're kind of having to race, you can use Romeos to deal with that. Or if your opponent's doing nothing but like Bradamentes, for example, yeah, you can exploit that by doing that type of thing. If you decide that you want to add 2 of level 2s or something, I have 2 choices for you. Actually 3. The first one is, what is it called? Guan, the Blessed Crimson General. It's just a multicolored, it's 10,000, it's really basic, but it will help give you a little bit more red in your deck if you need that type of thing. The other ones that are a little bit more spicy is Mew Suzuka, Phantom Terra Beast. It's a 3,000 attacker level 2 that whenever it attacks, it enter charges 1. So realistically, it's just a black saddle because you're going to attack with it and it's going to enter charge. It's just a black saddle at 1 Signy less. So that's an option. Your other one is Kayasumi, Code Maze. If you want to be thinking, all right, I'm really walling up here. And I don't think you want to do that, at least not yet, because it's green and green enter is not super what I want. This has the ability to, when you play it, if it's in the center, it is 12,000. 12,000 for a level 2 is huge. It's very rare that anyone's going to be able to attack through that. It's very rare that the opponent is going to be able to remove that with a spell or an effect. It also has the inner ability to rearrange your opponent's Signy however you choose. So if they were trying to wall you, you can potentially mess them up with that. It's got a very cool Life Burst, which lets you enter charge 1 and also negates the next Signy's attack. Pretty cool. It's definitely a wall card. A lot of green decks that are looking to wall will use this. I don't think this deck currently is that. I think this deck is more of a red-white deck than a white-green deck as it stands. But while we're talking about other green Signy you could use Quinn Code Labyrinth. Quinn Code Labyrinth will mess up your opponent's attack phase by swapping positions, and you got to remember it's a must ability, not a may ability, to swap position of your opponent's Signy however you'd like, and then one of those Signy will get negative 2,000. Pop 2 of those bad boys on the field, you're divvying out negative 2,000, but 8,000 in total. It'll definitely go to town. It's got a Life Burst that lets you vanish an opponent's up Signy or draw a card. It's a very good way to just be like, all right, I am going to mess with combat math here. And if you're looking to be a longer gamed deck, then this could be an answer for you. Another one is something that comes in, I believe, this pre-con. It's Chandelier Code Art. The costs of your opponent's spells are increased by 1 as long as there's a spell in your trash. And trust me, this deck, there will always be a spell in your trash. It gets plus 3,000. And any Signy that are vanished by it are put into the trash instead of the enter zone. It has a Life Burst effect that you can target. You can add up to 1 Signy and 1 spell from your trash and bring it to your hand. That's really, really good Life Burst. And it really is never going to die. People underestimate how hard it is to get rid of a 1,300. So let's talk 1,300, 13,000. It is a good Signy. I think it's worse than Archwain. But if you were going to replace Archwain with something, this is an okay one to replace. Archwain's ability to just basically have Shadow on the opponent's turn is very good. It messes up a lot of math, a lot of removal, a lot of freeze effects, for example. So Chandelier, also an option. These are basically all your options as it currently stands. Let's talk about where does this deck currently place on the meta. As it stands in 0-1, I would say this is probably tier 1.5. It's not exactly no limit strong. but it's not very far away from it. And in fact, in the hands of a capable player, this deck can go very far. Tiffany has taken this deck to a great heights. If you're conscious about constantly knowing how to thin out your deck and when it is correct to apply the pressure, when it is correct to be aggro versus when it is correct to be control in this deck, you really are armed with a pretty versatile deck. The weaknesses of this deck are the fact that it can get enter starved, and if Endless Punchline plus the ability on MC Lion third verse does not finish the opponent out, sans getting a very good life burst effect to open up a lane, or the opponent drawing poorly and having something you can remove, you can get walled from this point. Like, it is very easy to just be like, all right, from here on I'm playing 10,000s and above, and the opponent just does that, and you look at it and you go, yeah, I'll never have an open lane unless you hit a life burst and it opens a lane for me. So you got to be careful of that type of thing. How does it stand in the future? Well, the Japanese meta, it actually currently stands pretty well. It's definitely tier 2, and we're talking about set 6, set 7 on. It can still get the wins that you're looking to get. However, it does drop off pretty quickly. In set 4 is when it starts to drop off. This has got to do with the fact that it gets some good walls in the future sets, but what's more important is that DJ Lovett center, VJ Wolf center are not all that great. They're just kind of carbon copies of MC Lion. They're slightly different. I think that it's possible to make a center VJ Wolf, MC, no, God, they all have these types of acronyms. DJ Lovett, there we go. DJ Lovett, I think, as a center, could be a much more aggressive version of MC Wolf, but MC Wolf has the added bonus of the fact that it is white, and white is kind of the most powerful color in this game. It just has access to pretty much all the effects you could possibly want. That being said, when mixed teams start becoming a thing, MC Lion gets a little bit better in its newer form, and MC Lion has one of the best assists in the game. So you will see bits and pieces of this team on mixed teams. We're talking set 6 here, by the way. So in the future, you'll be able to see that type of thing. Realistically, if you're looking for an aggressive mid-range deck that eventually turns into more of a defensive mid-range deck, you like just putting big chonk walls out on the field and just being like, I will beat you to death with my center. This is the deck that you want to use. If you're looking for something more aggressive, you probably want to, like, and you're playing this and you're like, I just wish I could attack a little bit more, you'll probably want to swap over to No Limit. If you're like, I want more versatility in my mid-range deck. I don't want this, like, simple to play mid-range deck. It's got a simple idea that I'm trying to execute. And if that does not work, then I probably am not winning this game. Then you want to look more into Musica and Diagram, I think. It's kind of this weird straddle of the line between it's not a fast mid-range deck, nor is it a slow, versatile mid-range deck, but it is a true mid-range deck. And I think that's kind of the power of it too. It's also one of those decks that you can learn how to play, and once you get down, it becomes very strong. So if you like devoting yourself to a deck that's not going to have so many options but requires technical play, I think this is the deck for you. With that in mind, that's pretty much everything that I think you need to know about this deck, its future in the meta, as well as a little bit sneak peek of what's coming up in set 2. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything, go ahead and message me down in the comments below. I'd love to answer your questions about this. I also while I like building this deck and I like playing it, this isn't Tiffany's deck to play, and she's gotten top 8 more times than I can count with this type of deck. So she can probably give better advice if you ask in the comments below. And with that, guys, thank you guys for listening, and may you always flip a life burst. A life burst. A life burst. A life burst.